Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The SPA in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is intentional living. Amazing people like you share ways to live by design and with purpose to ensure that this short ride of life occurs with choice, physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-giving knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and creating a positive impact through intentional living. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. 5 Times August is the solo act of singer-songwriter Brad Skistiams, who is here with us today. Brad has appeared on the Fox Business Channel as an expert do-it-yourself indie artist and featured on Billboard magazine, performing songwriter, guitar player, People magazine, and USA Today. In early 2021, 5 Times August began releasing a series of protest songs taking aim at the COVID-era regulations, the Biden administration, Justin Trudeau, as well as Anthony Fauci with hit song Sad Little Man, which reached number one in the several Amazon and Apple music charts. He has a brand new single out called Ain't No Rock and Roll on Baste Records. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Diane.
Well, I'd love to jump in. And what was the moment of inspiration that led you kind of shift your songwriting into a reflection of what was happening in the moment in the world?
Yeah, it was kind of, I had been writing songs for 20 years. I started 5 Times August when I was 18. So I had a long career prior to this sort of phase of this kind of new era in songwriting, where I was touring colleges, I was writing pop love songs, and they were on MTV, and I did all that stuff. And then I became a dad, and I have 3 kids now, and I was doing a kids' music project actually before all of this. And that kind of abruptly ended in 2020 as the world sort of fell apart around us. And I was kind of thinking, what kind of world do I want to leave behind for my kids? And I have this platform to say something, so I should probably say something. I was kind of thinking of my heroes in music who weren't saying anything. So I released a song called God Help Us All in January of 2021, which I knew was going to upset some people that had been following me for a while. I didn't realize how many I would upset, but that sort of changed the trajectory of my career, because I put that song out. I thought it would sort of be my one say on the matter of what was happening in the world. And I started losing fans, but also gaining this whole new group of fans that were like, thank you so much for saying that. And that let me know that I wasn't alone in how I felt. And I felt like there needed to be more music out there speaking truth to power. And so I kept writing those songs, and that's sort of where I've been focused on in the last couple of years.
Great. One of the things I appreciate so much about your music is that it does give you this feeling that you're not alone. There was kind of this phase for people where it was either it was fear and, oh, you have to comply, do whatever you're being told, or there was a whole other kind of mindset where it was like, are we like in the Twilight Zone? Like, what is actually going on here? Like, where can we actually get some truth, if you will? And anytime someone who would speak, quote, the truth, it was a conspiracy theory, or it was like you were like, people were just like lashing out, and there was so much division. Like, I think it's one of the first times in modern times where there was so much division, where it's like you actually couldn't even finish a sentence, like people couldn't hear what you were saying. So I think that there was kind of like a safe place to be like, oh yeah, I think that too, and where can we look at it? And regardless of what side of the fence people were on, to be able to have an actual conversation, to be able to talk about it. I think that your songs really gave people, that whole perspective. And one of the kind of spins that were happening in the world of, you talk about like sick is the new health. So, how is it that you when you were speaking about some of those things, what was landing for your family? What was some of the feedback that you were getting personally, and was it part of your intention?
So my oldest son was injured by his early childhood vaccination shots, and so we were long down the rabbit hole before COVID of the medical freedom movement and what was going on there, and we could kind of see what was going to happen. We knew that there was going to be a shot introduced from the get-go, and that we were going to have to try to dodge that. But you could see like everything was flipping. It was kind of becoming an inversion of itself. The world, sick is the new health now, where we weren't being guided to do things that were going to make us better. We were being told to stay inside and cover our mouth and take this rushed shot and jam it in your arm, not once, not twice, but now 3, 4, 5, and it just kept going. But the reaction was, it was interesting because I was sort of speaking out online a little bit more post by post before I even released the music. So I was sort of like trying to say my piece, but also keep some civility involved. At the moment that I released that first song, the reaction to it from the people that had been following me for already 2 decades was interesting, because they they slammed the door on me pretty quickly. I would get those angry emails of, how can you say such a thing? Mask up, vax up, get your body trashed up. That's what you have to do right now. Like, they didn't understand. And it wasn't that I was saying, look, I was not the one saying, if you don't listen to if you don't believe what I believe, you can't listen to my songs. They were the ones that were shutting the door on me. I was sort of saying, look, this is how I feel. The door's always open. So it was interesting to see that, people that really should have known who I was, what I was about, where my heart was, not even want to have the conversation, just sort of close the door, call me dangerous, tell me I'm a murderer, all those things where you're like, really? Like you've met me before. You stayed after shows to hang out with me. You know who I am. And you just immediately lumped me into this crazy category without asking me why I would even feel this way.
Right. Right. Well, it's interesting because, coming from, America, where it's like, land of the free and, freedom as being our foundation, to then experience a lack of freedom and not even to be able to speak, whether or not someone believes it or not, but to even just go, what do you think, right? Whether it's a doctor or within your friends, like, okay, maybe certain things are being pushed or a certain agenda, but if you believe a different way, or about national immunity, about having vitamin D and getting exercise and getting like things that we know that are for health, and when everything is kind of opposed to that, and then it actually goes to like the next level of that, because then when you moved into writing like Jesus, What Happened to Us, right? Where you're just mirroring the world, right? You're not even necessarily saying an opinion. You're just saying, hey, this is what we're seeing. What do you guys think? Like, what's actually happening out there? And then when you start seeing that, okay, maybe there's something below that, when you start having age restrictions and, demonetizing, which affects your family, right? If you're not being able to make money on your songs because someone is saying, misinformation or things like that. And I love how you kind of dove deeper into that to ask, what is not true about this, or what is happening with that? So what was part of your experience where not only are you've got fans that are kind of jumping on and off and just causing all of that, but then the way you make money in your business, where it's like a deliberate attack on you?
Yeah, that was interesting too, because with each song I sort of kept leaning further and further in to say, well, what can I say here, and how can I say it without trying to play the game of what was that censorship and suppression in a way. It got me to creatively, approach the songs with a different toolbox, I guess you could say. But it was interesting to see from one song to the next, that censorship and suppression sort of take hold little by little, and the reaction to that. Because first it was sort of like, okay, fans dropped off. industry friends dropped off. By the time I got to a song like Sad Little Man, where, you know, if you listen to the song, it could really be about any corrupt little individual. It's not really till you see the video that you're like, oh, this is for sure about Fauci. But once I actually like called somebody out directly, especially such a high status figure who is really, you know, treated like a really was literally treated like a god at that moment, that's when I really felt the reality of the censorship and stuff. So my Wikipedia was removed that had been up for years, and YouTube attacked the video and tried to hide it from search results. And I started seeing that more and more, and I've seen it more and more since. And so that's been the reaction. But again, the silver lining of the negative has been the positive reaction and the community that has come together over the last several years, not just with my music, but just the community as a whole, these pockets of people all around the world that it's really growing. So
Yeah.
I try to focus on that.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you know, it's interesting because I think one of the things that's great about music, right? Because you can talk about how, you know, it's a reflection of what we're experiencing in the moment. And it gives us the opportunity to go, what's true for me, what's here, and then to start like your own research, like to start looking at, you know, why is this name being brought up? Like, what are we being told, like in mass media? And if you do a little bit of digging to see, you know, what else is there. I think one of the resources I looked at is when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote, you know, the real Anthony Fauci book, right? And that's a tough book to read because there's so many statistics and it's like there's a lot in it. But if you just look at just breaking it down, where this person has been the voice in government for like over 30 years. And when you start seeing like what are some of the things behind that, and you know, not to go down the rabbit hole of like, you know, the you know, medical industrial complex and how big pharma is tied to what our doctors are being taught. And, you know, we have a sickness system, right? And so when you see the history of that, and then you start seeing it come into play, it really is up to us to look at, do I want to step into that for myself, my children? Where are we going? And it gives us that opportunity to really look at things from a different perspective. And one of the things that you do talk about that is, why is living now the best time?
Yeah, I think it is the best time because I think for us, a lot of the conversations that I have whenever I meet people, and I've traveled so much over the last couple of years at rallies and protests, and I've gone to other countries, and the underlying theme I keep finding and that I feel from others is that we were all led to this moment to be the person that we are, to fight this fight together. And underneath all this like weird froth and ridiculousness, it really should be the best time to be alive. I mean, we have amazing tools at our disposal. They're just being corrupted. You know, the internet is a great tool. It connects us all. Our phones are great tools. They take us where we need to go, and there are other tools for communicating, but they're being controlled and tampered with and restricted in all these different ways that now they feel uncomfortable. So if there's a way to navigate through this mess, you know, that's another thing that I say. We're really kind of in a pubescent time of humanity where we're kind of ugly and our voice is cracking. But what's on the other side of that is you become mature and you figure yourself out and you become hopefully a beautiful human being. So that's the kind of phase that we're in. It's like, it's weird and mucky, but we have this incredible opportunity in front of us if we get off our butts and work together and really fight for it to create this great period of humanity, really.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I love about your journey, Brad. And just, you know, you don't just stop at like the doom and gloom and like, okay, well, here we are. What are we going to do? It's like you talk about like songs as being, you know, the power in our language, and it's an opportunity to reach people and have them hear things at a, you know, a different level, and that, you know, we get an opportunity to craft the narrative of where we're going in the future. What do you see as some of that way, some of that crafting that can help us just as a nation and as a world to take all the things that we've experienced, all the things and really seeing what's actually coming to light now. What's part of that crafting going forward?
I think a lot of it has to just do with art and culture. I think that's going to help craft that out. I think people are organically, naturally just sort of waking up to the corruptness and weirdness of it all. And some of the weirdness, like when you look at Hollywood or what's marketed to us through entertainment, I think some of that's intentional. There's definitely an agenda there. Some of it might have just unfolded naturally, just from the intention of shock value and pushing to get to that next sort of thing. I was talking about it yesterday with a friend about how I used to have a joke that it was all Elvis's fault because he shook his hips on TV, and because that was a big deal at that time, right? And so to go from, we've knocked down a block of censorship here, you can now shake your hips on TV, and that turns into the boys are growing their hair out longer now, and then that turns into free love and throughout the 60s, and then the punk rockers, and then grunge, and things get a little bit more aggressive and angry, and then you have goth, and it gets darker and darker every decade, it seems like, to where now we have rappers doing lap dances with Satan in their music videos, where people are like, okay, we've had enough. It kind of naturally, it's like you can only take it so far before it's just like, we get it, and then you start to look for something else that makes you feel better, And I think that that's going to have to be a big part of it moving forward, is the entertainment we absorb, the message behind the entertainment, and not just the entertainment itself, but just information and how to get it to one another.
Yeah. No, I get that. And, you'd mentioned about Hollywood, and, that takes me to your current new single, Ain't No Rock and Roll. And, how many times have we said, you talk about paid actors who are, told to say what they say because that's what they're being paid to do. And you talk about every pop star being bought and sold, right? Because if people go, oh, well, if this singer said it, it must be true. Right. And so they're the voices for that. And so what was some of the kind of backstory that had you write that song?
Yeah, I think that song was brewing in me from the very beginning of my journey. Like I said, there were two things that drove me to speak out at first, and it was my kids and thinking about, the world I wanted to leave behind for them. But then it was also my heroes and feeling so let down by all my musical heroes. I would have expected to speak up. So that idea, that conversation kept brewing. And as I was doing interviews and stuff, it's like, don't you think it's crazy? Rage Against the Machine has become For the Machine. And isn't it crazy? Neil Young has, drawn a line in the sand because of what he calls misinformation. And don't you think it's crazy that all these rock and roll rebels are segregating their audiences based on vax status and compliance, and so that song was going to come out of me at some point, and that's where it came from. I actually wrote it last November, and it had been kind of sitting around, but I think now's the time to sort of, I knew I had to sort of document that moment in time, so I'm glad it's finally out.
Yeah. When I first listened to that, one of the things that I think that, as you say, as we're moving through, there can be like, a dark phase and moving through, and it's like, hey, how do we distill light out of this? And what does that actually look at? And I think there's that opportunity where, a lot of times we look at, the singers and actors as, these idols that are up on pedestals. And so we get this opportunity to be like, okay, they're normal people like everyone else. What's our part in it, right? How do we get to shape with our voice and be able to utilize it? And it gives us that opportunity to take back our power, to speak our truth. What is the legacy that we want to leave for our children? And so it does offer a different conversation that happens. And either people are stepping into that, or they kind of get mired in the fear. And just, a lot of times on the show, we talk about like what are some of the tools we use to move through fear? Like, how do we, in part of the process, do that? So what are some of the ways that you maneuver fears that come up for you?
Faith and prayer a lot. Just feeling like, like God's got your back on this. It's if you can really, it's wearing that full armor of God for me. And it's just it's knowing what you're looking at. It's being able to question everything that you're looking at and understand that most of it isn't real. A lot of what we see online, the negativity, and if it is real, it's manufactured and with purpose and intent. So you have to be able to figure out a way to sort of brave through it. And I think, retaining some optimism about our future is extremely important, because if you don't think that we're going to win this battle, then what's the point? So I remain optimistic about it. I mean, I've been to so many different events where I've left feeling so good about our future, just going, oh, we've already won this thing. We just have to keep doing it. It's because that other side they just have the megaphone. They're just louder. It doesn't mean there's more of them. It just means they're louder with their propaganda or whatever it is they're trying to scare us with. So you just have to be aware of the tricks and stuff. But for the most part, it's relying on faith and not giving up hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we forget that we're in co-creation with God, right? That we get to step into our expression in life and what that looks like, which reminds me, one of the questions I always like to ask my guests, because we do get to create the space that we're in, and we live differently in our kitchen versus our bedroom or our living room. So what is your favorite room in your home, and why?
My favorite room is probably my bedroom, because that's where all my stuff is anyway. That's where that's where I'm usually writing, and I've got my guitars on the wall. It's kind of it's just a comfy spot, but this also where my kids come to hang out the most. So it's kind of a high traffic zone and full of inspiration.
I love that. Well, and speaking of inspiration, I love your song "Proud of You," where you really speak to children. And I think that, we're experiencing a time now where kids younger and younger are experiencing illness, part of the symptoms that are going on, whether it's physical and mental. A lot of people confusion about who they actually are, depression, suicide, a lot of those things are happening. And just going back to that basic lifting up of a child and saying that you're proud of them, and you say the words to them. I mean, I think too, as a parent, and I'm a grandparent now as well, it's like you get into the busyness of life, and sometimes we don't always notice like where our kids are at, or are they being affirmed, and what is that for them. So tell a little bit about your experience of writing that, and was it inspired by one of your children in particular, or was it an experience of all three? What was that like for you?
Well, that song came as just a feeling of a parent, really, in general. But I had written a song. So I've got three kids, and when my oldest reached kindergarten, I had written a song for him that was kind of from the mother's perspective, in a way. Called "The First Day," and it was about his first day at school. And then when his younger brother went to his first day of school in kindergarten, I had written "Proud of You," just because I just pull from whatever's happening in my life, and my kids were going to school for the first time. And I liked writing these songs that are like just gifts that will last a long time. So they know, long after I'm gone, they can always put that on and listen back. And it's something that parents can sing to their own kids. And, I've got a little girl that I just started writing her little song. So I think, they're just little things coming from daddy to them that I want them to know. and I hope that they sing to their kids one day. And I think there just needs to be more of that. It's just a pure little message from parent to child to say, I am proud of you. I'm always here for you. That's always sort of the little backbone of what it is I want my kids to know. I'm always going to be here.
Mm. So beautiful. I love it. I play that song to my youngest granddaughter and just like singing and dancing and stuff with her. And it's just, I think it's special to have those kind of things where kids get to experience that positive and how great they are coming into the world. So just thank you for bringing that positivity into your music as well.
Hmm.
So what's one thing people are surprised to learn about you?
I'm not sure. It has come to, it's interesting that now that I have this sort of protest persona behind me,
You
to
rebel.
go I went from kids music. I was doing a kids music project called the Juicebox Jukebox between 2018 and 2020, and that was like the most pure, honest stuff I could put into the world about kindness and gratitude and character building themes. And it was a project that I really wanted to sort of unite families with, where parents and teachers could enjoy it just as much as the kids. So to go from that to this other sort of genre where I'm calling out, uh, where I'm calling out the government and I'm becoming this anti-establishment rebel, it's kind of a bipolar thing. So I've had so many different little, you know, moments throughout my career that, I'm not just this guy in this moment. I am this guy right now because I feel like, this is what's important. But when I tell people, that's what I was doing right before this, that kind of kind of comes as a surprise to people. They're like, oh, because they kind of think in their brain something like Baby Shark or something like that, like the Baby Shark song. But I wasn't doing that kind of kids music. It was kind of hip and cool, but instantly you go to that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's still kind of surprising to me, even, to know the trajectory in which I started and how it led me to be this artist in this time. Because I do all my own videos for my songs, and the skill set that I have to create the current videos that I have would not have come had I not learned it throughout the kids music.
Mm.
So I was doing the videos for the kids music stuff that was very much in the same style, and had I not gone through that, I wouldn't have been prepared to make these videos, which are that style, but in a more grown up and serious way. So I love seeing how the pieces fit together, but it's all an expression of myself.
That's so great. One of the things I love to talk about our listeners is that, especially, the entrepreneurial journey, it can be a bumpy ride. You just never know exactly where that's going to go. But a lot of times we go, well, how does like my initial years, how does that even play into where we're at now? Because it could look totally different. And one of the things I've seen, and you've just been a great example of that, is, everything counts. Like all of those foundational things that gave you the skill set, it had you look at things in a different way, and it was able to shape that you were coming from a place of kindness, right? You were coming of questioning and wonderment. And, we want our kids to be like, not just, oh, that must be the way it is because we were just spoon fed that, right? We want to be researchers and creators of our life. And so looking at the journey as an entrepreneur, because a lot of our listeners, they're in their entrepreneurial journey and they may be in the mire of like, oh my God, what did I do? This is crazy times, right?
Mhm.
But they can also look at those different times of like, well, that was just setting me up to really live into my soul's work. Like, what am I really
Mhm.
here to do? And so I think that's such an important thing for people to look at. And that being said, what brings you hope these days?
Um, Again, I think my kids, they every day bring me hope in what the future has in store. When I meet other families, and what they're doing, I get to meet so many cool people at the events that I go to. I know so many um, people who are fighting for what's right, doctors, scientists, master gardeners, and um, just across the board, artists and entertainers. And that stuff gives me hope because they're all kind of in their different lanes right now, but at some point they're going to merge, and that's the new world to me. And so I can see this new world being crafted right in front of me. And that's really exciting because it didn't exist 3 years ago. A lot of, the community that's in place now, your show, I'm sure, was it here 3 years ago? Or
It
did you?
was, but it looked
Okay.
very different.
Okay, well, sure. So yeah, you see how things have changed, and people are finding out their purpose, and it's kind of crafting out that new lane. I mean, like it's like I was here 3 years ago, but I was not this artist, right? And so it that is very exciting. I think humanity as a whole is going, whoa, there's something uneasy about right now. Uh, we've been charging forward in the name of progress and the future or whatever, but maybe we should slow down and take control. Maybe we should grow our own food again. Maybe we should teach our kids what they need to know instead of hand them off to somebody else for 8 hours a day. Maybe we can find work from home so we don't have to leave the family for 8 hours a day. The family unit, I think, is number one that is going to repair itself, because our life and the everyday pace has been designed to rip that apart. So I just think that humanity gets a sense of that. Collectively, we're like, this isn't right. We're not doing it right. Let's slow down and say, what was good about the last 100 years, and what have we let go of and sacrificed that in the name of convenience that we need to reconnect with. So that keeps me hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah, so great. One of the things is that, we are evolutionary beings, right? And there are different things that are happening in the world in the moment that affect and shape, how we are and how we show up. And so that was one of the things that I started in the beginning with the podcast like 7 years ago, was that each year had a theme that was reflecting where I was at, where, my audience was at, and where the world was at and what that looked like. And so that was one of the things behind, this year's theme, which is intentional living. So for you, in what way are you living an intentional life today?
Well, I think it's about finding what it is you have to offer this moment. You got me thinking just a moment about, everybody's path and what that looks like as an entrepreneur. And when I started 5 Times August, I was 18, and everything that I thought I wanted, that I was going for, I honestly, I didn't, if I did get it, I didn't get it the way I thought I would get it. And everything else I got was even better than what I anticipated. It just happened a different way. But I knew what my purpose was just to create music, and I would find my way. That was sort of, um, that's what drove me, was just keep doing what you feel you need to do with your talent and your skill set. And that's kind of how I've always lived, is just take each day, say, what do I have? Um, and move forward with that, with what you feel like sort of the universe is telling you to do that day.
So perfect. I love it. Well, I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. How can they best do that, Brad?
So you can check out 5timesaugust.com for the mailing list, which I always recommend everybody sign up for in case they get booted off Twitter or X or Facebook and stuff. But I am on all the other social media websites. So you can check out 5timesaugust.com, and then there's at 5timesaugust on all the other social platforms, Getter and Locals and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them. I'm everywhere, YouTube. And then find the music on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify if you want to check it out.
Perfect. Love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Be willing to be the voice for the masses and to be able to share all of that with us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Diane.
You got it. And to our audience out there, this reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Clement Watt, where it's take the first step, no more, no less, and the next step will be revealed. Brad didn't know that he'd be where he is here today, right? But he took the step and he leaned into that. And that's what we have the opportunity to do as entrepreneurs, is just take the first step. You don't have to see what it all looks like. Those things will be revealed to us in many different ways. And I absolutely encourage you to go to whatever platforms that you listen to music on, put in 5 times August. We want to support the artists that are, stepping out as entrepreneurs, making it happen on their own. They're not relying on the big machine to make it happen. It's day to day. And it's with, our dollars are our votes, like where we spend our energy and, our dollars, that's where, that's what gets supported more. That's what gets to happen. So I just encourage you, in fact, even when you click off here, go to 5 times August and just look at the different, we've mentioned some of the titles here in the show, pick one of them, just listen to the words and just see, what speaks to you, right? And that might just be the next platform that launches you into the next step for you. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.